Welcome to Harbinger's flagship interactive webinar, Power Hour. Select the right speaker for audio output. Test your speaker from audio settings. If necessary, join the webinar using your phone. Use the Q&A panel to share your questions. This webinar is being recorded. Attendees will receive the recording. Let's tune in.
Hello everyone, I hope you are doing well. I'm Vikalp. I'm the moderator for today's exciting event. I would firstly like to thank you for taking time out to attend this Agentic AI session hosted by Harbinger. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'd like to inform you that Power Hour is a series of interactive roundtable discussions hosted by Harbinger, where industry stalwarts share their experience and insights on a particular topic. Well, as we enter 2025, we have some surprise gift from the industry experts for you. So stay tuned till end and receive the gift. And the topic for today's discussion is Agentic AI, impact on product and strategic directions in 2025. Now, the first question arises is what is Agentic AI? And the simplest answer that I could think of is it refers to an AI system capable of acting independently, making decisions, and adapting to achieve specific goals without constant human input. With that, I'd like to introduce our host for today's roundtable, Shrikant Patathil. Shrikant is President and CTO at Harbinger. He is a seasoned technology leader with more than 25 years of experience. He drives technology vision and specializes in future-focused solutions. An MIT Salon alum, Shrikant has led various teams and navigated evolving tech paradigms from client-server to AI. I welcome Shrikant, and Shrikant, the stage is all yours.
Hey, thank you, Vikalp. Thanks for that kind introduction. Welcome, everyone. And, I'm very excited about talking about this topic of agentic AI, probably the most trending in the last 6 months or so. Everybody is talking about the scope potential. So we decided that, a power hour from Harbinger, specifically talking about things in the HR learning domain around agentic AI, as we enter 2025 would be great. And I have a great set of panelists, and I'm eager to post this interesting set of questions to know more about this topic and see how, as technology people, as product people, we can navigate and build solutions that are futuristic and have the agentic flavor in it. But before I do that, let me go ahead and share the game plan today. So today we'll talk about, how agentic AI impacts business operations and how does it actually change things. We will also delve into some examples, specifically in HR learning domain and in other areas as well. We will also talk about, in case there are any emerging new business models around implementing and building as well as deploying agents, and of course what challenges we foresee while building and adapting to this new paradigm. So with that, I would like to take you through a few examples and trends. So one of the most interesting stat that's out there, posted by Gartner, is that today, if you look at the number of agents that are out there in applications, they are less than 1%. And that is supposed to grow exponentially and reach to a number of 33%. I'm sure this is also a guess number. Probably this is going to be much more if the adoption and the use cases develop as we see they have been developing every day in terms of what people are putting out as far as use of agents is concerned. So every 6 months, we probably can reflect on how things are changing for us when it comes to use of agents in our day-to-day applications or work or entertainment and so forth. Now, if if you look at how the the evolution of agents, I mean, it's not like there weren't any agents before 2024. There have been, and there are different ways of organizing and classifying. So this is one way of classifying that we thought was interesting. That going from simple reflex-based agents to hierarchical agents. Now, reflex-based agents, they are like doing a particular task, uh, like resetting your password based on some event or interaction. Then they are model based, like you can configure based on your personal preferences, some weather settings or application settings that happens automatically. There could be goal based, where things like in a complex environment, somebody's providing you guidance as to how to reach a particular outcome. It could be completely autonomous, or it could be with human intervention as well. And then, of course, we have seen many utility-based agents pop up, which will help you do things like scheduling and note-taking and various applications, completely automated and highly organized, and information that you can take and run with it. And of course, the futuristic ones are the learning agents, where there is continuous learning happening. So today, if an agent is doing specific tasks, as it interacts in particular environments, gains knowledge about the environment, gains knowledge uh, about different data that is coming to it, it changes its behavior and the way it produces results. And of course, the bot of bots, if you will, in the hierarchical fashion, where an entire building automation is completely happening by in an autonomous way. So there are many examples of this. And there's probably different ways of classifying this also. And as this technology evolves, I think we'll see many ways in which this categorization happens and those changes happen. And last but not the least, I also wanted to share some industry examples. Like ServiceNow is talking about using agents for automatically fixing tickets, uh, Salesforce for your customer interactions, uh, and agents to help sales do a better job. Same things with Workday, with Illuminate. What they're trying to do is automate the entire recruiting via agents, and also provide financial expense management and so forth. So many companies converting their existing applications into agents and then delivering those experiences as we speak uh, to customers. Now, an interesting aspect is about what's the change from SaaS to agentic model. And I'm sure as the discussion goes further, some of our points would be around this area as well. For the last 20, 30 years, I think we've been in the SaaS world or the cloud world, where it was purely subscription based and focused on user and specific set of workflow based automations. Whereas the future would be more outcome based, based on individual situations, individual scenarios, uh, data becoming central, and applications not just being helping us do tasks faster, but also actually doing the tasks. So it's going to be an interesting world, and therefore, there will be new business models and new pricing models and new ways of delivering and experiencing applications. And that's where, we all need to probably understand this at a much deeper level. And that's the intent of this particular webinar and conversation. So I hope I've given you enough introduction on the topic, and without further ado, let me welcome our panelists who are the experts in this field. They're doing a lot of work in this area, and they'll probably guide us through their experiences. So starting with Aditya, thanks Aditya Nema from Adobe for joining us. He's the principal product manager. Um, and Aditya, if you can please introduce yourself and also share what makes this topic so interesting for you.
Thanks, Srikanth, for inviting me over. And hi, everyone. Very good morning, very good evening to you guys. I'm Aditya, and I've been building enterprise Grace products since about last 15 years, working across various tech giants like Amazon, Microsoft, Walmart, and as of right now, Adobe. I'm a principal product manager for a product called Adobe Learning Manager, which is a corporate LMS which treats multiple use cases. One is your internal employee education use case, where you're trying to upskill your employees so that they can meet the business goals or demand of the business. For example, right now, almost everybody, every single organization wants their employees to have AI skills. And that's where an LMS comes into picture as to how can you join learning with the business goals and get your employees educated enough so that they can drive the goal. The second and the more important use case is customer education. So as Srikanth was mentioning earlier, the whole journey of how SaaS has progressed. Along with that, the enterprise grade softwares have become complex. So even if people buy these softwares, they really need to be trained on how to use these softwares for both the parties to be successful, the person who is selling, the entity who is selling. Because if the adoption of the feature doesn't come through, the value realization does not happen. And the person who is buying, because if you bought a multi-million-dollar software, then you're not able to get full value out of it. Your money is basically going down the drain. So since this is such a big need, that's where LMS comes into picture, joining this gap where training would be provided by the software provider or the service provider, and the person who bought the software, they take the training and they are able to use the software much better. That's what I do right now. Now, what makes me interested in this topic? Again, since the last 10 years or so, I have been very fortunate to one, look at how enterprise businesses work, and second, being involved in multiple waves of how AI has evolved. So back in 2016, when it was the pre-LLM era, when LLMs were not into picture, we were in the predictive AI phase, where most of the AI technology was around predicting things or finding the right document. And then I was involved with Microsoft to build a human-like chatbot. It was for the Indian audience, so it was called Ruh, R-U-U-H. And the way that software worked was that we had tons of public-facing data of question and answer tuples. Whenever somebody would ask a question to that chatbot, we'll try to match which is the most relevant question and give the same answer. That was phase number one, according to me, and the bot was not at all accurate. Then came phase two, right? Chat GPT, and suddenly the game changes. Now we are in a world where the accuracy of response is super high. And that's one. And then second bit is that previously in the predictive world, it would take a lot of time to build a chatbot. You have to collect the data. It needs to be white labeled. You have to put it all through into a package. It will easily take 6 months to 1 year. Now with LLMs, wave two, it takes like 2 weeks. You do prompt engineering, you can get your application out. And that's where, again, fortunately, I was involved in building a quiz generator for the current product which I work on, ALM, where the authors of the LMS now find it very easy to generate quizzes on top of the course. So LLM can get the context of what the course is, generate a quiz, and boom, there you go. Again, the problem with this is that if the quiz contains 10 questions, the author doesn't like all the 10 questions. So now the author has to manually go and edit each and every question. What if the author really wants some questions on a few topics which don't exist or which were not generated? What if the author wants to increase the difficulty of these questions? And that was, for that, the author will again have to do a lot of work. Now, come fast forward to Agentic AI, right? Last 1 year, this is again evolving. So now, one of the design patterns of Agentic AI is that, you can reflect with it, which means that if the 10 questions are generated, can I give a very simple mechanism for the author to say that, I want 3 questions on XYZ topic and replace questions which are redundant, give me questions which are on these 3 topics, uh, and those would get generated. It could really ask, it can reflect with the agent, it could work with the agent and iteratively give uh, more and more guidance to it so that it offers much better questions. That's part number one. And along with reflection, when reinforcement learning kicks in, the agent learns further and next time gives a better response. So since I've seen these 3 phases, I'm really excited about what this latest phase agentic AI brings into picture. I feel this could really change the game of how enterprise softwares work.
Thanks, Aditya. That was pretty an interesting journey and take on how AI has evolved. So thanks for sharing that. I'm sure as we delve deeper, we can get into more details of your experience. So next, I would like to welcome Ryan Kohler, founder and CEO of Refer.io and GPT-4 Work. Ryan, I know you've done tons of things, and AI is your passion currently. So if you can kindly introduce yourself and tell us your interest in this specific topic.
Sure. Yeah. So 20 years ago, I got into the HR tech space coming out of web marketing, built an ATS system, bootstrapped from, 0 to 10,000 clients actively using, managing, huge white labeled for places like iSolved and Preview, as well as Applicant Pro itself. And very different than the enterprise side, very much a SMB focused tool pointed at human resource professionals, which are most likely nothing like anybody on this call. Extremely late stage adopters, extremely risk averse. They sit on the farthest side of the skeptic level of that product adoption curve. And generally a overlooked target audience that we sit around and say, I don't understand why they're not using our systems and our products or using them the right way or adopting them. It makes no logical sense to all of us 1 and 0 thinkers. There's a right way to do it. Why are people not doing it? And so, yeah, very much Applicant Pro story of like, we started inside of a target audience where maybe usage of ATS was 20% and everybody else was using Excel and their inbox and like paper, and saw that kind of progression to we're probably, if you count Indeed as an ATS, 80%, 90% at least usage rate of that type of software and a commoditization of it, and even more down market. For us, I'm a bit different here. I'm not an engineer at all. I'm more product manager that mixes kind of marketing and product management on that side of it. And I think most of the time where we would see things going wrong was the seeking of efficiency without effectiveness. So to us, to me, the upside of generative AI is the fact that you can make the content more specific to the user. Because accuracy, like, hey, I'm sending out the data on what happened, is accurate, but may not be engaging, because if you have a non-data user, they want the story behind it. And that story needs to be related to who they are and their company and their specific use cases, and kind of meeting them where they're at. For us, we used a lot of kind of early days AI of things such as a triggered outbound email from our product based off of something somebody was doing to really kind of extend our product into their inbox. Even more importantly, when it's one thing if users are in your system, but when users aren't in your system and you're trying to bring them back in, you can't solve that product problem by changing your UI. You have to get it into their inbox and disrupt them and bring them in. And so a lot of what we were doing in the early days was rotational or predictive content to create an email on the fly that would be more engaging. And clearly now that kind of goes to a different level, right? Where you can be much more personalized of that email going out, still making it feel like it came from a human, still having it signed by a human, still listening for the reply from a human. But your humans on the customer service side being there waiting for the response, not needing to do that part. And so now I'm at Refer. We do the opposite. We kind of moved farther up the funnel for recruiting. We manage remarketing of jobs to employers' past applicants to bring them back into the fold. We send 120 million one-off emails a month. Last year was 1.2, 1.3 billion emails, like a 70% open rate. And so, that is kind of where we see the potential for, especially because email marketing is now back to a blue ocean, something HR doesn't do. And so anytime you're in the HR tech space where a lot of businesses go wrong, we get a bunch of venture capital. It makes total sense to the bubble in Silicon Valley or to your HR people at tech startups that this new cool way of doing things will work perfect and it's completely logical. Everybody will use it. And then you get for us to the middle of America to a 100-employee credit union HR person, and it doesn't make logical sense to her. And so that really is what excites us, is that the ability to make more narrative-based, compelling things that bring the data to life or that bring the next logical step we want them to take, but they're not taking it, and build momentum like we're marketing features of our product to users to get them to want to go use them more. And that's probably the easiest way to explain kind of where our excitement is around it.
Makes a lot of sense. And, the way you describe about accuracy and engagement, I think, and leveraging agentic approach for that, it sounds like an interesting one. Sure, we'll get more into the details, but thanks for sharing that. Let me now introduce my colleague Umesh Kanade, UK, VP of Capability Development and the Center of Excellence at Harbinger. Umesh, if you can kindly introduce yourself.
Thanks, Srikanth. Hello, everyone. I'm Umesh. I've been primarily with Harbinger for last 25 years, playing multiple technical roles and overall leadership aspects as well, focusing the overall practice development through the Center of Excellence function, as well as the capabilities for at people level, which the skilling and overall building the tech cultures around the teams as well. What interests me is definitely the last couple of years where the Gen AI picked up. It's really fascinating how it sort of enabled the overall automation and efficiency improvement, throughout the product development life cycles and multiple operations that we are enabling for our customers, including the product engineering, content development, and some of the technical services as well. So the way it evolved from the bot interactions or the experiences to the co-pilot way, and now the agent way, where the whole the experiences of making it more autonomous that's really making it more fascinating. And I'm really excited to be part of this conversation where I'll hear more about the product and the business side from both Aditya and Ryan here. So pretty much looking forward to it.
Hey, thanks so much for that. And I know I've got the segment towards the end for you. I'm sure to leave some space for you where you'll explain the whole concept of how an agent looks like. So I'm excited for that part, but everyone hanging there. So just diving in, starting with Ryan, yourself, as with any new technology, the first question that everybody asks is, I know all of the technical people get so excited about it, and every 6 months you're talking about something new. Is agentic AI also like that? It's like just the hype, or is it here for good? And we should really invest time, learning this and transforming ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, generative AI, I think with most new technologies, we overestimate. If you look at the Gartner hype cycle, right? a lot of hype is put out there to attract money, to attract talent, right? We're going to be on Mars next week, right? We need this level of hype to pull up. It's not a promise, it's a potential, right? And then people start using and we slam down and get very discontent with it. Oh, we build a chatbot. This is so awesome. Oh, like her response or his response or whatever it is are terrible. Our customers hate it. Oh my gosh, like generative AI is bad. And we end up out here, in progress, if you believe that if you get the trend right, this trend is definitely right. 100% like that piece. I think the challenge is, I was reading something yesterday, wanting to go from crawling to running without walking. In the startup world, we call this nail it, then scale it. And where a lot of the challenges is in our rush to implement the end solution, we are not taking the time to validate the right solution and that it works right. We just jump all the way to that end because the promise that's really sexy. Oh my gosh, I rolled this out and I don't even need employees anymore is extremely sexy until the next day all your clients leave because your AI employees are terrible. And so, I stepped down from Applicant Pro 2 years ago, had a non-compete, non-solicit, which means I had nothing to do with my time. I'm probably 4,000 over hours of personal interaction in ChatGPT. Not because ChatGPT is the best thing ever, but because it is our window into building this iterative relationship with, hey, yeah, you gave me a blog post, but that sucked. Like, hey, you gave me this, it's accurate, but it's not engaging. It's not. And so I think that's where most businesses are missing it. You throw the IT resources at it, but if you don't understand the client and like their persona and you don't understand the nuance of is it accurate or is it engaging? Is it, those things are very difficult to just throw a tech team at a business problem, especially for a non-tech buyer or user, say HR. Like you could go through all the HR tech space for the last 30 years, look at all the funded startups, and you could probably pile a big chunk of failed ones, whether it was mobile technology, video technology, texting technology, like all of those things, you're going to see that same pile of failure. And it won't be that their tech didn't work. It will be that their tech didn't work the way that the user worked. It didn't line up. We were trying to get them to jump 20 feet ahead instead of taking these steps up that progression, or the thing that nobody wants to hear HR say of like, yeah, but that's not compliant. Yeah, but that's not legal. Yeah, but that's not the way we do things. Those might sound like excuses, but to your user, they are valid reasons for non-adoption. And I think that's honestly whether agentic AI or fill in the blank, any AI ends up appealing to its promise will actually be less about the technology and more about the implementation from a user experience standpoint, especially if you are in HR, finance tech, lawyer tech, all those people that do compliance for a living, they are skeptics. 1,000,000% skeptics. They are not marketers. They're not early stage tech adopters. They are late. And I think that's probably like you could lump every single technology I've seen into that same bucket. It's why I'm willing to invest that much time to be like, did this work right? Can I show it to a user? Can I see, did their eyes light up? Or what question did they ask? Did they get confused? Did they get afraid, etc.? And so that's why I believe, I know that may not be the answer the tech people want to hear about it, but your answer to it is don't build an agent without a user like a customer service rep or somebody to speak. This is just agile product development, right? You need to have a voice of the customer. You need to have validation of the content. You need to validate the business approach and make sure that we've actually mapped the user experience map, not just the technology stack piece. Because that's where most people that I'm seeing are going wrong when they end up there and going, I mean, it functioned correct, but nobody used it or nobody liked it. The missing part wasn't the tech piece. It was they went tech without the customer voice and without those pieces.
Makes a lot of sense. I think with any technology that is true, but probably, it'll be even more relevant with something that's a bit complex, like AI and use cases of agentic AI.
100%.
Let me bring Aditya in. Aditya, what's your?
I 100% agree with Ryan. My abstraction on the same information is a little different though. I feel any technology to become successful, there are three dimensions to it. One is what's the promise of technology, right? What can it solve? Second is that how quickly can you iterate with the technology? Like, can you build fast? Can you go to your users fast? Can you see there is a product market fit? And then, third is what kind of use case can it solve for your customers? So again, if I look at some other technologies, like before generative AI, you couldn't iterate quickly. I mean, you would take a lot of time to really build a model, and since you couldn't iterate quickly, you couldn't go in front of the customers quickly, you couldn't know whether it is working or not. Second part, the promise of technology, right? Which means, again, which will bring to the same point which Ryan was mentioning earlier, accuracy. So does this technology solve the problems with good amount of accuracy? I mean, I'll throw some data here that with generative AI, I mean, there was a test done by some experts and they used ChatGPT 3.5. And the simple question was, write an essay on a topic XYZ. And they found that accuracy was, 48%. Only 48% of the times, the person who was getting the essay written was happy with the essay. Fast forward, there was ChatGPT, 4.0, and there was a lot of time in between these two technologies, which means, OpenAI took sweet amount of time, to train their AI on many more billions of parameter and come with 4.0, and their accuracy just increased to 67%. Fast forward, Agentic AI, they again took ChatGPT 3.5. They put agentic workflows on top of it, which means they put reflections and reasoning on top of it, and they were able to increase accuracy up to 90%. Right? So that's where the second promise checks. And if I have to compare, this or let me compare that, after the third use case. Now, what are the use cases it offers? I mean, the use cases are really in the the design patterns which you can build out of it. One is that this technology can reason with the human, reason can with themselves, and come up with an answer which the person is looking for. So building on top of what Ryan was saying, right? You can really build a UI, user experience layer on top of AI to really cater a solution to what Ashrikant is looking in that essay versus what Umesh is looking in that essay, or versus what Ryan is looking at that essay. All the three of us might be looking at different things in that essay, and it can be catered to because it can reason that Aditya is really wanting this essay written for a student who's of 10th standard and not really the prime minister of a country. So the third part is the use cases which can really be phenomenal if there is an AI which can start doing a lot of your work. Then what you do in your day to day, you will have to elevate your goals. So in my industry, in the LMS industry, if I talk about admins, generally the enterprise grade software is built to increase admin productivity, so that they can start doing their day-to-day tasks much more faster, much more easily, and that's where most of their time goes in. But what if there was an AI which can do most of their job? Then this admin's job will evolve into really getting to the business goal. The business goal in a customer education scenario might be increasing the sales of a particular, let's say, mobile company in their stores. That if I'm a particular mobile company, I'm trying to sell phones in various stores. How do I train the salespeople so that they can sell better? Now, if someone else is doing my day-to-day admin job, I will try to really figure out how can these salespeople learn better so that at the end of the day, sales increases. So imagine an L&D admin's now job whose day-to-day job was to create courses, enroll people. From there, their job elevates into how to create business impact. So since this technology checks all the 3 points, you can iterate quickly, you can have high accuracy, and the use cases which can be built do promise elevating your job to a higher goal, to a more organizational level goal. I do believe it can become reality, but right now it is a hype. But it's very close to becoming a reality versus, let's say, a crypto, right? The technology was there, the use case was not there. So there is the big difference between, it going from hype to reality, according to me. But this one can definitely become reality very soon.
Crypto is also gaining a lot of traction currently.
I get that, but I do feel that the use case part of crypto is even after 4 or 5 years of it being a hype, is not really very evident right now.
True.
Yeah.
So
If I could jump in on what you were just talking about, I think one of the, at least on our side, one of the biggest, I don't know about misconceptions, but over reliance. If you think about the use of generative AI, whatever you want to use, right? We tend to get extremely focused on the capabilities and accuracy of the language model. And I'll put this out there. You guys can, burn me down if you want, but I believe that we are over indexing on that versus what we fed it. So to give a great example, right? If I wanted to say, can you, please write a essay about employer branding, right? And I threw that at 3.5, 4.0, whatever the case may be, and came back and read that and said, hey, is this accurate? Well, that's not a 1 or 0 thing. There's no right and wrong. That's a thought concept, right? But I'm relying on not just the capabilities of the language model, but its knowledge on that topic. And so one of the easiest ways to get to wildly successful and engaging content and accurate content is not relying on it for its knowledge base, meaning, hey, I want you to write me a blog post about employer branding. Here is the transcript from our webinar that our team did on this. Use that as your knowledge base. And when I say blog post, narrative report, whatever the case, here's the writing framework that I want you to use. You instantly put a 3.5 language model above 4.0 from it is great content because you gave it more of your business knowledge and your business self and that type of stuff instead of like crossing your fingers. We like to tell our clients, we're like, it knows everything about everything and nothing about you. And when you're typing prompts, we optimize typing for minimizing. When you're speaking, you optimize, like you put yourself out there. And so even converting your users, whether they're training your prompts, and you're then going to automate them with agents or not, pushing them to use voice to create the knowledge bases and the flows and that, you get 5 to 10x the amount of words that you're giving into it, and it instantly increases the accuracy and the engagement of that content. So it's funny, but we're so reliant on the AI that we're not giving it enough of us. And if you go with the collaborative intelligence standpoint, whether that's, pairing, a user with the bot to write a blog post, or whether it's pairing the business process designer with the agent to build the output, we tend to under index on giving it more of us, more of our knowledge and our words and our phraseology and the content. And almost every business out there is sitting on a gold mine of webinar content, video content, all that stuff to get the words to give it. Clearly, you could go, and I know if Brett was here, he would be, hey, and we can train our own models with those words and that type of stuff, and gets really into the power of that. But even just with a standard, OpenAI API or Anthropic, I can get to insane, great, engaging, triggered follow-up email of a narrative of a report by taking the recordings of my customer service reps, teaching somebody that, and feeding that as the base language model to look at. Instant increase in the measurement of what your customers think about the email. And to us, it's, do you reply? Did I really fake you into like getting you to reply back and go, oh my gosh, that was amazing insight. I'm going to go and do X, Y, or Z because of it. That's a lot of nuance. It's very hard to get just a click rate to say, was it a good click or a bad click, right? But yeah, so that's just my 2 cents from everything we've seen. And probably one of my differentiators and kind of competitive advantages when we're building AI stuff is that we're so focused on giving it so much of us to use instead of being reliant on it.
And I recently saw a demo, where it goes beyond voice. So there's the AI where it's not just voice, it's recording your voice, it's taking the words, but it's also recording your video, and it's taking your body language into account and then generating a response. So you have the context with which the user has come, you have their voice, you have the words, and you're also analyzing their video. And it's a classic example of multi-agent model where when there are three agents, one is taking text, other is taking voice, third is taking video stream, and then coming up with what is to be done.
I think you guys brought in great points about, it's not so much focus on choosing the LLM or, that accuracy, but focus upon how, what you are providing to it. And the more you provide to it, the more context you give, it will definitely, do the job, and how to make your users also do that. So I'll jump to the, third portion segment. I think we have already answered that it can provide transformational experiences, so I will not go back into that particular question. But if I am a product person or a product management person or a technology person thinking about, I already have an application and I'm figuring out how to add now this whole agentic concept into my solution. Because there are many people who are not building products from scratch, they already have it. So what would be, Aditi, your advice? And I think Adobe is an example. I mean, you already have so many things in the market already. In terms of building and integrating AI agent, what's the adjustment that as product management that you have to make to now, like you said, like iterate fast, do things in a new way, if you will. Any thoughts on that?
And the first and the foremost thing is AI should come integrated in your workflows. So AI should be in the workflow of whatever you are trying to achieve. I'll take an example of a feature we are attempting. It's called the admin assistant. So as I earlier said, an admin's primary job is to make sure enrollments are happening, make sure the users are getting ingested, take a look at the reports, see if the completion rates are good enough. Wherever compliance has not happened, bring those people, make sure compliance is happening. Now we are trying to come up with an assistant which will be in the flow of when an admin is doing a job, when admin can simply ask question that can you find me the compliance courses where completion rates are low. And now this agent, this orchestrator, so there are two pieces of technology out there. One is an orchestrator, it will figure out in a multi-agent model which agent is the best to answer this question. So the orchestrator will break down this question, and it will, let's say, send it to agent number one, which will generate a report, or which will first figure out which course are we talking about, which compliance courses. Second agent will figure out, which reports to pull from where I can get the users. And the third agent will really paste it on the UI. Basically, the point I was making is that with this technology, you end up infusing it into the existing workflows to make sure whatever somebody is trying to do, I mean, you could elevate their role further and make them not just more productive, but help them get to an organizational goal level. And that is the objective we start with whenever we are building AI, right? So similar thing we are attempting on the learner side also, where the learner assistant, each learner will come up with a goal. Most of the learners on the internal employee education side right now, as I said, have a goal of learning AI, but that manifests into what are you trying to learn AI for? A company which is into marketing versus a company which is into manufacturing, AI will manifest very differently for both of them, even from a development perspective. So can this AI tool understand that context and then recommend the right courses, create a learning path which is short enough for them to consume, so that in their flow of work, they are able to achieve much more and elevate themselves up to achieve organizational goals, rather than doing small tasks which they do right now. That's the philosophy with which we are trying to build more and more AI features into my current product.
you're more like, get the right workflows and then embed, infuse AI into it as seamlessly as possible. Okay. Makes a lot of sense. Ryan, your perspective, you build technology from scratch as well.
I'll give you, yeah, and mine is probably extremely contrarian because that's how I tend to roll. I think that there is we are falling in love with the sexiness of a computer that acts like a human and responds to us. And while that is cool, and I totally get it, I believe that it is, again, we are missing some very easy low-hanging fruit. And the number one premise of it being we're looking for the 100% solution and not the 80-20 rule solution. So let me give you a great example of this. Netflix probably has more AI than, I mean, almost anybody out there, right? And yet there is not a chatbot in Netflix. It is not a human, the feeling that you're looking at. And more importantly, Netflix is trying to dramatically reduce the chances that you type anything by predicting the most likely thing and giving it to you to click. And so if you think of the way Amazon, why has Amazon not gone away and gone straight chatbot? Because it actually would be a bad experience. It would be sexy. Oh my gosh, look at Alexa. I'm chatting with her to find the product I want. But it actually would not be the right implementation compared to here's the next 5 products that you're most likely to like, click. And so I think a lot of times inside of the product platform, we fall into that same trap. Give you a great example at Applicant Pro. While we had a chatbot there for you to chat with, just embedded chat with our customer service team, that concept requires you to click and type your question. And while that means I can type any question, I can get to 100%. The more powerful tool we built was a footer bar that wrote on every page that came up with 5 likely questions for that page for that user role. It didn't feel like a human, but it dropped customer support tickets by 30% overnight because it's easier to click than to type the question. But it doesn't feel human. And that's, I honestly think one area that ChatGPT is maybe harming some of the adoption is it threw us all the way into, oh my gosh, this is like we're talking to a human. Instead of going, wait a second, if we were taking Netflix's approach to support, it wouldn't feel like a bot at all. There would be a list of most likely questions and you would click. It would feel like a predictive FAQ that was writing FAQ articles on the fly as you did them, not a bot that required me to phrase my question and initiate. And so for me, a lot of times, I believe the product team has an insane amount of low-hanging fruit on, can I predict the 80%? Can I send that to my user in an email? Can I predict the 80% and throw those buttons right there next to what I was doing? Hey, most likely as a learner, these 5 things are what you want to learn next. Click here versus, hey, we can help you learn anything. But that means the vast majority, what you end up doing is building potentially products that your top 5 or 10% get great experiences from, but your bottom 80% get very low experience from or don't use it at all. And so depending on who you're targeting, now the best of both worlds is you have a chatbot and you have the predictive buttons because that checks down your low user. It gives it's kind of like our breadcrumbs. Like, give me something to click on, it triggers my mind. Give me an open box and I go, oh crap, what should I type? Like, why is like half the world suck at Google? They don't know what to type in that box, right? And Google doesn't know, but they should at this point know enough about you. But as a product person, when you log into my system, I know a lot of stuff about you. And if I inhaled stuff from my customer support team and the calls you have to build out more about you, and I know a ton about my product, I should be able to triangulate that stuff of your company information, your user, what you've been interacting with, and our product to predict for every user on every page a couple of things that are like, hey, you might want to learn these next. You might want to do these next. And you would see an instant like business return on it overnight, but you wouldn't win the award for the sexiest sounding chatbot.
Yeah, that's true.
But it would just effing work.
Yeah.
And so from a product standpoint, I think that is the finding the happy medium of not falling in love with the implementation based off of your comparison to your competitors, but falling in love with the usability for the highest percentage of audience, not just the early tech adopters who will find the shiny object cool. Because we tend to, as tech people on this call, I would almost guess we are all early stage or innovator adopters. So we assume most of the world is mostly like us, maybe just a little behind us. Not that the users are like at the end of the train behind us.
Yeah.
Like afraid of the technology that we're building. Even what is brought up, hey, if I automate your job, you're going to be able to do a better job. That one concept has been thrown around a lot, but misses this one human psychology part. What if I don't believe I could do that job? Or thank you for telling me I could do a better job, but what if I don't want that? And those very people are the ones that are going to be dragging their feet at helping us roll out this technology. And so some of that, as an employer even, you're going to have to set the stage where your team feels confident they will have a job after they help you build this stuff, and start inspiring them to want a better job before you say, oh, you could do the better job. Because for the most, at least in the US space, 50% of those employees don't believe that they could do that job. They don't feel confident doing it. You don't aspire to things you don't believe you could do. And so even some of that, I think it's the underbelly that nobody wants to talk about adoption of this kind of stuff. But if the very people with the knowledge in their head that could train your bots feel that they are going to be gotten rid of, or that it's them versus the AI, at least from what we're seeing, that is the drag of adoption inside of companies, is that not all the stakeholders feel that the future will be brighter for them, but they're being asked to help build the future. And so I think there is some psychology behind that teams need to actually stop and think about like, well, how do we make sure everybody's inspired by this? Because if they're not, and they have the potential to drag their feet, they're going to stop us from implementing.
I have an interesting analogy there. I mean, I don't know how the inspiration part would happen, but if we go back to, personal computing space, back in 1900s, how banks used to work, it was all, paper-based ledger. There was no machines. And, the use cases were that anybody who wants to open a bank account needs to have a minimum balance. And that balance was high enough that you would attract only very high valued customers, right? So banking was not available to everyone. Fast forward, computers came in, some form of computing came in where this job became easier. And you didn't need, one person, instead of doing, 10 ledgers in a day, could do thousands of ledgers in a day because they had access to computer. That did not mean that jobs went away. The use cases bloated up, banking became available to everybody. And on top of that, use cases got built. You could now have a credit card, debit card, buying gold, buying stocks on top of this banking application. So job exploded further, to where, by this analogy, I don't know how that inspiration bit would happen. I do agree, Ryan, with there that how do the current employees do get inspired, to adopt?
I 100% agree that will happen because it's always happened. Yeah. But the psychology of the worker is like, it doesn't mean it will be fun. We'll go with that, right? It doesn't mean it will be fun. And if there is fear there, it will cause drag, right? And so, I 100% agree with you. I think what we'll look back on, we used to always say, identify an industry that you want to go disrupt. You would look for those where the major players started before the iPhone versus after the iPhone. And that was your dividing line, that you're like, oh, I should disrupt this industry. The players are old school. Not just that their tech was old school, but their mentality was. I believe you're going to see 5 years from now, looking back, saying companies that started post AI versus pre AI will have a competitive advantage. And the reason is because of the team adoption of AI. It's very different to go into an existing organization with 100 employees and bring AI into it and start adjusting those processes, partly because of the pushback, but also partly because a bank manager he has equal knowledge of ChatGPT as a teller, but he's trying to force. This is the first time we've really seen that, where you had an instant leveling of an organization from their knowledge of how a technology works. Whereas a startup, the founder's using AI in his job, and every hire he makes is you're going to be using AI in this job. And so I actually think that's going to be one of the most disruptive things from a business model standpoint is that these little startups are going to iterate so fast, not because they have more money and more technology and better technical capabilities, but purely because their startup teams from the top down are post AI. They used this to do their jobs before they hired their assistant, and their assistant was hired to use it. And I think you're going to see that will be the difference between an organization doing support with 5 people versus 50 people coming down from 100. They won't be able to get to 5 because culturally it's just not the same in their organization. When your boss tries to tell you to use technology but also use it safely and doesn't have the ability to know whether you're doing it right or wrong, but needs to approve it, like that is what we're seeing in the consulting side is even if I give you the right idea and the management has the vision of, hey, we want to do this, they are not confident in knowing whether it's being done or not. They can't analyze a project and say, this is a good project, go or not. And we're seeing stall after stall after stall of, we got an idea, we went and messed around with it, we need approval to integrate this into the process, and nobody at the top knows how to approve it because AI is such a black box that they're like, well, I don't understand. And so there's some interesting things on that piece where the tech guys are and girls are going to be sitting around going, hey, we're ready to build some stuff. Like, let's go. But nobody knows how to approve the project or approve to get it integrated. And it's a great time to be a startup. We'll go with that. As somebody who just came out of a 300 employee later growth, I know that's not big for you guys, but as a bootstrap company, 300 employees is a big freaking size to be bootstrapping. Back to 5, I can tell you that is my number one thing I'm seeing. This is a great time to be in a startup, purely from the ability to iterate so fast without the overhead of all these random psychological questions of your teams and your managers and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a great time to be in startup land, that's for sure.
Thanks. You answered a couple of my other questions about, what are the challenges, how do you adapt? So I think it was a great discussion. So I think that really helped. I will probably, since in the interest of time, not post any more questions myself, but let me bring Umesh here. I told him that I'll give him a couple of minutes. So let me bring him in and ask him, because of course, there's a lot of engineering team that kind of attends. Umesh, if you want to articulate how the agent workflow is, or how it looks like, or if you want to walk us through, that'll be great.
Sure, absolutely. I think we heard a lot of these aspects in terms of multiple agents. They are collaborating and orchestrating and getting some of these things done. And whatever maybe your the choice of frameworks could be the LangChains to start with, or getting to a more collaborations through the AutoGen, or even more tasks and structured oriented aspects through the crew where there is a human in the loop in the workflows and so on. So all of these essentially have at an abstract level a structure or the workflow, what you are seeing on the screen, where primarily the central part is the more decision-making entry in the system, where all the requests received, there is a planner agent that evaluates tasks using whatever the combinations that you are connecting with the LLM's memory and the tools which are performing these jobs, right? So it analyzes the requirements, gets the context, finds the right appropriate the tools or agent in the system, just like maybe a project manager who will assess a job and distribute the responsibilities to the right team members based on their expertise, right? Then that's where essentially the specific targeted agent, which specializes in the specific responsibilities, carries out that task and assigns it back to the planner agent. So they select specific actions or tools that are required to complete that action task, and then make it's more like manager reviewing, what's been. Sorry, I'm getting a background. Hope I'm able to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So essentially, the worker agents are something which are at the ground who are performing some of these actions, and very importantly in this whole process is the feedback or the critic loop, which the every agent which executes the task and their outputs are reviewed and more critic by the orchestrator agent, and this feedback loop helps refine that process. So ensuring that the work aligns with the overall goals that and the quality standards that the agent is expected to do that. And the whole all these orchestration is much more coordinated, I would say, by maintaining a shared memory, shared context, and that allows them to track the progress, maybe recall decisions, or just adjust the actions based on the new information that you have received and so on. So this essentially helps you get that continuity or the maybe the relevance in the whole complex workflows. So in a nutshell, I think the agentic framework is more mimicking that collaborative team with different agents acting as whatever the planner, executor, reviewers, and so on. They work together and try to get some of the problems solved more efficiently and intelligently. So I think I just probably here and hope that sort of clarifies that flow as well.
Yeah, thanks, Umesh. I know we could have spent another half an hour on this particular conversation, but I think thanks for simplifying it and helping some of the people who are new to understand the workflow of an agent, how it is different. So thanks for that. Since we are at the top of the hour, I wish I had at least 2 or 3 more questions. And looking at the conversation, probably we need to do a part 2 as well of this to talk about things like the business model and things like actual challenges that people will face. And Ryan and Aditya covered a lot of stuff in terms of how to think about building AIs, not just chatbots and the human-like experiences, but thinking about the user, thinking about how they experience your product and using AI to deliver that, rather than getting excited about this particular way of doing things and just somehow making your applications behave that way. That's probably counterintuitive to and it's a learning for me as well. Like, I've been mostly thinking about how to put natural language and chat into applications. So it's a good perspective, and I'm sure I'll take it. And all the audience here as well will find it very useful as to what you are doing in the startup world with your consulting, as well as Aditya, you are with Adobe, the learning transformations that you're building. So thanks for that. I think in a nutshell, we covered a lot of ground today in terms of the examples and how to think about agents and how to use them effectively, pros and cons. And I'm sure, there's many more things for us to learn in this area. And as we build more and deploy more, we will probably, get better and better. And I'm sure this topic deserves another discussion a few months down the line. So quickly, on that note, let me hand it over to Vikalp once again to complete and close it for us.
Thank you very much, Srikanth. And I'll say, wow, I mean, this entire discussion had me glued onto my seat and started giving me all the different kind of line of thoughts that I would like to reflect upon once I go back to the drawing board. But yeah, great session, guys. Great discussions we had. And before we move on to questions posted by our attendees, I'd like to share with our viewers that Harbinger is a global technology company with more than 3 decades of experience. We build products and solutions that transform the way people learn and work. And, I will like to move on from there, and in the essence of time, I'll just take one question, and from there, we can move on to concluding the session. For all the rest of the questions, we'll be answering them on the chat itself, or we'll be mailing the answers to the attendees. So the question that I have is, how can organizations build trust among users when deploying autonomous AI agents? Ryan, would you like to take this up?
And that was trust with the users?
Come again?
You said the question was, how can organizations build trust with who? The users or with their team?
Yes,
Yeah, I think they're
when
Yeah, I
deploying,
mean, 100%. Like, I would say, number one, recognize whether engaging with AI is viewed as a positive or a negative by the user. Because you don't have to make it seem like they're engaging with AI. You can do this, like for us at what we were doing at Applicant Pro and what we do at Refer, is identifying, say, a trigger inside the system using an agent to go and review their account and information and come back with kind of next steps, and then a different agent to write the email and craft it. But that email is still going out from a human, meaning it feels, and my goal is that it feels like a real person wrote it. And if they hit reply, it goes to a real person, not to the agent. And so that kind of loop of I'm not taking the human completely out. If you want to maintain trust with the content's good, then you start moving that human through. So it starts with, we built a tool for my support person to use to write their response, but they can still review it. We love the answers it's giving, to the point that it's, hey, it gives the answer and we check it later to, kind of progress. That's, again, this is iterative agile steps for adjusting the process. And so I think, like, you don't want to lie to your user, but making it seem like it's coming in the same way that the user's used to. If your users are used to FAQ articles, your agents could be writing those articles on the fly, but still displaying them as an FAQ article. That doesn't feel the same as chatting with a bot, but it's the same content. It's the same prompt. It's just a different. And so I think the experience, the trust is about the experience and meeting the user where they're at, not, again, using the experience that you want to use because you love developing that technology or your competitors using it. That is probably the easiest hack.
Makes sense.
All right. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you. All right. With this, as promised earlier, for the giveaways, we have shared 2 expert guides with the industry veterans' thoughts on HR tech trends in 2025 and e-learning and AI-based course modernization in 2025 in the chat window. This must have guys dive into latest innovations from AI-driven recruitment and personalized employee experiences to automating workflows and modernizing the content. Packed with the actionable insights, expert tips, and inspiring case studies, it's ultimate resource for HR and e-learning leaders aiming to stay ahead of the curve. And with that, I'd like to thank you, all the panelists, for this wonderful session and answering the question. For all the questions that are unanswered, we'll be emailing you the response. You're also welcome to connect with our panelists directly via LinkedIn. We have shared the LinkedIn profile links in the links right now in the chat window. With that, I once again thank you, Shrikant, and our panelists for the wonderful session. And I'm sure that we are all going back with some food for thought for today. I'd also like to thank our viewers for joining this session through Zoom and have been amazing audience. Thank you once again. Take care and have a nice day, everybody.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, UK.
Thanks.